Divorce is one of the most challenging transitions in life, and without the right guidance, it can quickly turn into a disaster. Welcome to Dodging Divorce Disasters, the show that helps you navigate the legal, financial, and emotional pitfalls of divorce before they happen. In each episode, I sit down with a top professional in the divorce community to hear real-life war stories, cautionary tales from the trenches of divorce. But I won't leave you with just the horror stories. The experts will break down exactly what went wrong and, more importantly, how you can avoid making the same mistakes. Whether you're in the early stages of separation, deep in the process, or supporting someone through it, we are here to help you move forward with clarity, confidence, and fewer regrets. I'm your host, Lori Hawkins, and I am a local expert in divorce real estate. I am so excited to be sharing these incredible professionals with you. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another recording of Dodging Divorce Disasters. And I have got a great guest with me today, Meg Stacy. How old are you? I did not mean to say that. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on here. All right, I'm going to let you do your own little bio. If you can just tell our listeners, like, where you work, like the name of the firm you work for, maybe the counties, and if
Sure.
there's anything, particular that you do that you want them to know about.
Sure. So I work at South Park Family Law, which is a firm based in Charlotte in South Park. I'm actually in Morrisville, so I'm in a satellite office. And so I mostly serve Iredell County, though I do go to Mecklenburg, kind of surrounding Cabarrus, Catawba, Union, sort of like the surrounding counties, but mostly in Iredell and Meck. I practice family law almost exclusively. I do a tiny bit of estate work, pretty basic estate work. The other attorney, our firm, Molly Anthony, the owner, she does a lot more estate, like more of estate planning, estate administration, that sort of thing. And then I do a little bit of guardianship, and then I'm a mediator. So I do both court appointed and private mediations for family financial cases. So also domestic, that sort of thing,
Okay.
custody, property.
What do you mean by you do some guardianship? What does that mean?
So guardianship is well, there's a couple different kinds of guardianship. There's guardianship, which most people think of when both parents are deceased, and there's like a need for a minor child to have a guardian. That's what most people think of. But guardianship, I guess the most famous or most probably relatable example people knows is like Britney Spears. So she was under a conservatorship. It's the same thing. It's basically adults who, whether they have some sort of developmental delay, Alzheimer's, Down syndrome, something like that, where either they're turning 18 and their parents want to have some sort of, they still need to have a guardian, or they're, in like older in life and need to go to a facility, or, in developing some dementia type of things. So those are the two big categories. Of course, there's like mental illness and stuff like that, but it's basically adults who need, for lack of a better word, like a person to take care of them, who's their guardian.
Okay. I did not know you did that. And I
Yeah.
don't know that I knew you were a mediator either.
Yes.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love doing mediation. So
Yeah. A little bit of everything, huh?
yeah, a little bit of everything. Well, a little bit of everything, but mostly family. So yeah.
Mostly family, yeah, yeah. Okay, I love, I always like to do a fun fact, start out with a fun fact, and you put on here that you majored in classical languages, Latin and Greek. I just think that is so cool. I mean, what were you hoping to do? Did you just know you were going on to law school and you thought, "Oh, I'll just do something, that I like to
Well,
do and then go on," or what was the deal
no,
with
so I did not. My dad is a lawyer, and is a non-practicing lawyer, and was in politics. So he did went to law school to kind of not to really practice law. So it was always kind of on my radar. But I ended up majoring. I mean, this is the worst reason, but I ended up majoring in Latin because I just did really well in high school in Latin, and then it kind of came naturally. Languages did. And so I got like a 5 on my AP exam, and so I placed into like upper level Latin. So I like really only had to take like 8 or 10 classes in college to be like a
Wow.
major, which is a terrible reason to major and something. But I did really enjoy it, and I was good at it. My thought was I would go on to be a teacher at a secondary school, a private school. Obviously, most public schools don't teach Latin, but I do think it's good that for kids to learn Latin. I think it helped me with my SATs, and I think there was, like, the thing that I really enjoyed about Latin, which I also enjoyed about well, I should say I did not enjoy law school, but made me enjoy the law, is that, like, it's sort of you have these rules, and then you apply the rules to a certain fact situation. So like in Latin, you're not fluent in Latin, right? So it's a dead language. So you're always like you learn these rules, like these, grammatical constructs, and then you translate something. So which is very similar to what we did in law school as far as like you're given a problem, you have some rules to apply to it. And so I kind of like that sort of
Okay.
exercise.
Yeah.
So I mean, it made sense that I would like the law, but I definitely did not. I worked after college and for several years, and then decided to go back to law school. So,
Nice.
yeah.
I homeschooled my kids for 2 years. That's all I could do it was 2 years, and we all knew that I was not called to be a homeschool mom. But that was when I kinda got a taste because I had the kids doing some, like, Latin derivatives and
Mhm,
learning that kinda stuff. It was fascinating. I enjoyed homeschooling for myself. I think I
mm.
learned more than they did. They
Yeah.
always say now that, those 2 years, they learned nothing. Mom fail, but
Yeah.
anyway. All right. Well, let's kind of jump in. Dodging divorce disasters, right? That's why we're here because probably the listeners are either contemplating divorce, going through a divorce, and I just love all the information that all the experts, family law attorneys, CDFAs, divorce coaches, whoever it is, we all have stories that our clients have done things that we look back on and we may advise them at the time and they didn't listen, or we look back on the story now and think, man, if they had only did this,
Mm.
then they could have dodged that divorce disaster. So I'm hoping that we can help some people out there dodge some of these. What story do you have for us? What lesson to learn?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious is probably like, and I don't tell everyone they need to hire an attorney. I mean, there's some people come in, they're doing, their plan and their agreement sounds like pretty fair and that both parties are kind of on the same page and being reasonable. And so I'm not going to say the thing that probably every lawyer says, which is like, don't forget to hire a lawyer. um, but having said that, that's not the norm. Usually there is like an unequal power balance, right? So, and whether it be just personality, it doesn't have to be money or anything like that. Just can be someone has a stronger personality. I would tell I would tell people to always consult with an attorney if they have any questions or any fear about what's going to happen. And then, of course, don't sign anything until you talk to an attorney or talk to, at least have someone else look at it. But um, I would say even within the context of hiring an attorney, um, I would challenge people to ask themselves like throughout the process, kind of, am I doing this or am I not asking for this because I'm afraid of like the other person's reaction? Because I've seen a lot of that lately where it's like, even, having paid me to help them, there's some kind of pushback on, if I do this person, it's going to be bad. And my response is usually, what's already bad? I mean, you're already going through a divorce. It's pretty rough as it is. And I mean, I can think of a couple clients in particular right now who are like, you know, especially men with related custody who like didn't want to file for custody or didn't want to do X, Y, and Z within the context of custody because they were like, this person's just going to go it's going to go, it's going to upset them so much, they're going to go so crazy or whatever that that they didn't do anything, and then now a year and a half, 2 years later, we're like, okay, well, now we're having to go back and ask the court. And the court's kind of got the obvious question, which is, why did you not say any of this initially? Well, because I was afraid. I mean, so I think that I always, and I say that I'm certainly on the spectrum of lawyers. There's like like the fierce litigator, and then there's like the peaceful. I'm more on the peaceful side of the spectrum. So I'm certainly not encouraging every client that walks in my door to like, could go to battle by any means. But when I hear people say, I've got some concerns about the other party, spouse, or our unmarried, parent, about their ability to parent, but I don't want to ask for too much because I'm afraid of what they might do. And I've seen that recently, even with drug use. And I've got a client now who there's some concerns about drug use, but she's essentially like kind of let it go out of fear of his reaction. I'm like, and sometimes you have to say to people, listen, take yourself out of the situation. Imagine if a friend is telling you, hey, I've got these little kids who are being exposed to drug use. You would say, you're crazy. Get them out of there. But you can't sometimes see your situation when you're so
Yeah.
in it. That, I had to kind of politely at our consult say, listen, like, I'm going to say back to you what you're saying to me, and you tell me if I sound like a total crazy person.
Right.
And I do. It's like, so I think sometimes people put up with a lot because of a fear of life being disrupted, when the fact of the matter is, when you're in my office, like, your life's already disrupted, unfortunately. And so I would just encourage people to, steel themselves for, for maybe some backlash, but also do what's best for, in the context of custody for your children, and or for your, if it's property, make sure that you're getting what's fair, because a lot of times once it's done, and you can't really go back and, you know,
Yeah.
renegotiate. So,
That is such good advice because I hear so much when I'm selling a home. I hear people say, I'm done with this.
yeah,
Just whatever. Take whatever offer comes in, or just give them whatever they want with repairs because
mhm,
I'm done. Because a lot of times the home is perhaps one of the last things they're doing. It's one of the last loose ends that they have to do. And I hear that a lot. But in your case, I mean, they have hired you for a reason, right?
right.
Because you know the law and you know how to advise them. And I can understand if there is like a physical fear,
Yes, yes,
but there are ways. You have resources to protect people, right? I mean, even if
yes,
there is physical fears, or if there is even emotional fears, which honestly, not to get jump too deep in the weeds because neither one of us are therapists, but that's probably a whole nother session, right?
it is. But I
That
mean, we're not therapists, but let's be real. Like, there are times where I'm like, am I a therapist? Like, today,
that's
was I a
one of
therapist today? Like, maybe I should be a therapist instead. Because sometimes I feel like I get more traction when I go down that route, and,
right,
but yes,
right.
I think that we all have we have to wear a little bit of a therapy hat at times, but certainly we're not mental health professionals.
But you guys really do. I mean, as a CDRE, as a neutral third party, honestly, when people start that stuff with me, I have to veer them off
Yeah.
because really to sell the house, I don't need to
Yeah.
know anything. It's not
Less is
gonna
more.
affect. With you guys, y'all really do have to listen to
Yeah.
a lot of stuff because you've got to know the background story to be able to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just feel, in fact, I really have not heard anybody else talk about this before. But I mean, the I really can't say the law is very straightforward because the more I've gotten into this divorce niche, I realize there are a lot of gray areas in
Yeah.
law. Is that true?
Yes. And I think that's kind of why, there's like a running joke that I think I may have said this to you before, that, the worst clients are lawyers and the second worst clients are engineers, because truly, think about, like, just for example, child custody, which is probably the most common claim that I deal with. Is the standard is best interest of the child. So that could be, I mean, that you might as well just say bring everything in, right? Because it's so open ended.
Right.
And so, and sometimes it can become, each parent wanting to talk about who's the worst human being of, and that's really, it's really in my mind not relevant. But if they can tie it to the child in some kind of tangential way, um, then everything kind of comes in, whether it's like something they said 20 years ago or whatever. So when people ask, like, what's going to happen, you have to say, well, what are they going to say? What are you going to say? What is the judge going to, what judge are we going to have? So there's so much, um, it's not just gray area, it's like unknown, which is like why I think in the last 30 years, you our divorce culture has just changed so much, as far as like like, most people don't want to go to court. Most people don't want to have to guess what a judge is going to do. They would rather settle for maybe not a perfect scenario rather than, spend thousands and thousands of dollars for someone they don't know to kind of guess, make their best guess at what should
Right.
happen. And so I do think that accounts for a lot of, rise of mediation. And even you think about just like, I think about movies 30 years ago and how divorce was like, how it was like the First Wives Club, for example, like,
Mhm.
just like this, like knockdown, drag out, like just this sort of glamorizing, absolutely awful, awful scenarios. And that's just, changed so much since the
Exactly.
80s.
No,
And
you're
I think
right.
for good reason.
But then in other circumstances, though, there are laws on the book that entitles spouses to certain things. And, and those are things that us as a normal person would not know. So,
Right.
I mean, if we are coming to you and they're just like, look, he or she is so hard to get along with. I don't want to
Mhm.
rock the boat anymore. I just
Mhm.
want to get through this. So whatever he says, let's just take it. Let's just
Mhm.
take it. And then
Mhm.
when you get something from that other person's attorney and you're like, you could get so much more
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want your client to have is regret, like you
Absolutely.
said, a year out, and especially financially,
Yeah.
because I mean,
Yeah.
statistically, women are worse off. I
Yeah.
mean, men and women are just because you're going from two salaries
Well,
to one.
sure, but yes, women are worse off, and also I think women are worse off, for a lot of reasons. I mean, some really obvious, like historically, men made more money and worked, and women didn't work or stayed home with the kids, which is not necessarily the case now. But there's also like a real disparity in knowledge. I mean, I have people who it kind of blows my mind, and I'm not that I'm some hard charging feminist or anything, but people come in who are my age and they're like, I have no clue what he earns. I have no clue what we have in the bank, and you're like, what? Like you
Uh,
don't have any like I mean, literally no idea. Like, I mean, just truly, like they get an allowance, and you know what? Honestly, like I know it's not criticizing those women because I think sometimes, gosh, that would be kind of nice to just not have to worry about that and be like, just
yeah,
like leave me out of it. You know what? Give me some money each month, and
right,
I'll just not worry about any like sunshine, rainbows. That sounds great to me in some ways, but then when things go bad, it's like it's really a scary, scary world, and I think like that can be utilized by the other side to be like 'cause just a lack of knowledge to kind of you can
right,
kind of create the reality, right?
right.
And I think that, you know, I have certainly over the years had several people come in, and it usually is women who have said, "Okay, I just signed this, or I signed this several years ago, and I'm like destitute, or whatever." I mean, horror stories, and you think like, I mean, and also some of them are just it's really just sad. It's like, my husband told me we'd get back together if I sign this, and you're like, it's like, and it's like heartbreaking, of course, but also like a lot of times it's like that's the worst kind of meeting I can have where I just have to just say, there's like absolutely nothing I can do. I mean, and it's
I
like
know.
such a bad situation and it's just like heartbreaking. And I mentioned earlier that, I'm more of like a peaceful attorney. I say that because I have so many clients. I want to kind of counter that by saying like I have so many clients who like I have explained the law to them what they'd be entitled to, and they still want to do something different, maybe take a little bit less. And I'm absolutely on board with that. I'm like, if you want to be done and you want to move on and you want to buy this house and you need to free up the money and like you're willing to leave some money on the table and you understand that and you're making a conscious choice. Because sometimes it's not just what the law says; it's also like a mediation. We use the phrase needs-based negotiation. Like you need to get your kids in the school district. You need to have this settled before a certain period of time. Like, yes, you could get $50,000 more. But your parents are willing to help you, and you really just want these kids to be settled before August or whatever it may be. Then I always encourage. I am not a person who's in mediation, banging my fist on the table saying like, "Oh no, you get every dollar that you are entitled to." Because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is
Right,
better to just say like, I'm ready to be finished with this part of my life.
right.
You can fight forever and ever and ever, and at some point, it's diminishing returns, right?
Yeah,
Your mental health takes a toll, and very few people who are mentally well want to fight for years and years and years in the court system. I mean, truly, it's like it's an absolute awful existence. So, um, I'm not saying that I'm always going to push every single client to take every single dollar they're entitled to, but I certainly don't want anyone to agree to something that they're doing out of like either fear or
right.
intimidation or just a feeling of desperation. It's usually a feeling of desperation. It's like, I've just got to be done with this. This is going to get so much worse. And this is kind of like, it's more of like a psychological thing than it is reality.
And it could be that could be their tactic on the other side.
Of course. And I always say, like, to clients, like, the dynamic that you had during your marriage or during your relationship, if you're not married, it doesn't stop because we're in this process. It's the same exact dynamic, right? Like, you're still afraid of whatever the reaction is going to be. And I often say to clients, which is probably not it's probably crass, but I just like, so if you don't do this, are they going to be nice to you? I mean, truly, it's not like
Right.
you're sparing yourself bad treatment. You're just trying to minimize, like, what you perceive as, hey, it could get worse. Well, and then usually it's the same people on the other side who are going to act how they're going to act anyway. So it's kind of
Right.
like, well, it's not like you can protect
Exactly.
yourself from
I
that.
know that must just be so hard as an attorney to, because I mean, I even know I have had people who are divorcing, like I said, and they want to put the house on the market for less than I know we could get for the home,
Mhm,
just because they want to get it sold. And and
mhm.
and I understand that tactic. I mean, yeah, it is. And a lot of times we get multiple offers when it's lower and it drives the price back up. So it's kind of a
And the
win-win.
converse I'm sure you see, which is I've seen a lot of it, is like where there's one party who, and it's usually, it can be sad, it can be frustrating, and it can be sad, but where they want to list it for double what it's worth because they don't want to sell it and they don't want to move on and they don't want to get divorced. And
Yeah,
so,
that's the harder one.
and yeah, because I mean, truly, it's a lot of times it has nothing to do with anything other than they don't want to get divorced. And that is
Oh,
always a
that's
tough
exactly what it
situation.
is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I have 2 of them right now
Yeah. It's like,
that
well, it's
are.
$1 million house. Like, oh, well, no, it
Yeah,
can't
is
quite
it
get
really a
there.
$1,000,000 house? Our top doesn't support that. And, and that's just the thing too, is if unless it's a cash offer, it's not just the even if someone's willing to lay out that money for it,
Mhm,
if they're getting a loan, an appraiser is gonna
mhm.
use those same comps.
Yeah.
I mean, it can get very, very frustrating, but and like I said, I only see a very small portion of what I know you guys do. Hey, I wanna ask you about this. I'm sorry, were
Sure.
you gonna say something else?
No, go ahead.
Okay, you talked about being a mediator.
Mhm,
So a lot of people, I feel like for people who are not in the divorce area, they hear a lot of terminology.
mhm.
Okay. I mean, yes, you're a family law attorney. Oh, but you're also a mediator. Okay. What does that mean? What does that mean? You're also a mediator.
So a mediator is a neutral, who meets with, and it's usually both parties have attorneys, and I meet with, with everybody, and I'm like the neutral, and I try and help them facilitate, an agreement. So, and usually it can be pre-litigation, so they could like be wanting to negotiate a separation agreement, and they can voluntarily choose to go to mediation, and usually the lawyers will reach out to me and go ahead and coordinate that. Or once there's property, so there's alimony and ED, it's property division. The courts require you to go to mediations. A lot of times it will be like they're in litigation and it's a requirement. And then I have had a very few, but a few where both parties are pro se, and I always wonder how they find me. But makes it a
Explain
little
what
more
pro se
complicated.
is.
Oh, I'm
What's
sorry. Pro se means
Yep.
neither party is represented by a lawyer.
Okay.
And there is some confusion, and I've had this happen a few times recently where I'll meet with a client and I've suggested the process of mediation, and then I'll get an email from a mediator saying, "Hey, we got like so and so has retained me to do mediation next week," and they said you're their lawyer, and there's like kind of some confusion as
See,
far as like,
that's what I was meaning.
yeah, or like can a client will come in and say like, can you mediate for both my husband and I? I'm like, well, and there are circumstances where they can, do an informed consent saying like, I understand that you've met my wife, like, I'm waiving this conflict. I would not recommend that because it just, if anything shakes out on one side feels like it's unfair, there's certainly like, some allegations to be made. So I would ideally both parties have their own attorney and a mediator. And it sounds expensive, but it's a one day. It's a tough day. It's an exhausting day emotionally and kind of
Mhm.
mentally. But if all goes as planned, it's finished in that one day, and so you leave there with a full agreement.
So basically, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this,
Sure.
as an attorney, you can only represent one party. You couldn't
Sure.
represent the husband and the wife,
I mean,
right?
very
And
rarely we you can, and it's only if like they come in together. They say, okay, we have, and they usually have like their own little legal pad. They've gotten everything worked out, and they're like, we're gonna come in and tell you what we want to do. And we have them sign something saying like it was dual representation, and I mean I think I've done that maybe twice in 10 years. So, but it's truly when they've and a lot of times I'll only represent one party, like for separation agreement, for example. It's that most common time comes up, and it's really like I'm representing one party, and the other person doesn't have a lawyer, but really they've kind of already done this. They've done the
Right,
work themselves,
right.
and so,
Yeah, that was kinda what I thought, was that
yeah.
really you're still kinda only representing one, even though they might both be involved with what's going
Yes,
on.
and like what the agreement represents really their negotiations between themselves.
Right, right. Now
So
let me ask you this, verify this or not. If you are one of them, an attorney for one of them, you can, not then be their mediator.
correct.
You are either a mediator
Or an
and
attorney.
for both of them, a neutral
Mhm,
third party, which they
mhm,
can or cannot have attorneys,
mhm,
or you can be an attorney for one of them, and if they wanna do mediation, then you or the other one would other attorney would have to reach out to hire a mediator.
mhm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think the problem that happens with both attorney mediators and non-attorney mediators that I've run into is that the rules of the mediation rules, like, there's professional conduct rules for judges, lawyers, and mediators, right? And they're all separate, but there's a lot of, overlap. Um, we're not scriveners. So, like, if I have clients who are a client who comes and they've gone to the Charlotte Mediation Center and they've gotten an agreement done, and they come with this, like, it's like basically like a bullet pointed um agreement to agree kind of a thing. And then they still need an attorney to actually draft legal documents. So it can be a little bit like what the parties probably thought was like a saving money tactic has actually become a little bit more annoying because then they've got to kind of take that and then inevitably there's some disputes about like, oh, the drafting and what it looks like. And so I always tell people, I'm like, if you're trying to say, and it's not like going to those places is free or cheap. So I always tell them, like, if you're trying to save money, at least one person have a lawyer going to mediation who can draft the document.
Mhm.
Um,
Because even if the mediator is an attorney, they still, if they are the mediator, they cannot draft the
correct,
document. You have
correct,
to take it to another attorney to have
correct.
it draft. Yeah, see, and this is the kind of stuff I don't think people realize,
Yeah,
because it's very deep in the woods. For those of you guys who do this all the time, y'all just know. But I mean, for
yeah,
all of us plain Janes out there that don't, I mean, I understand that now because I hear you guys talk about it all the time.
sure.
But I mean, when I was going through my divorce, I had no idea what
Well, and
all of
you can see the traps too, right?
that.
Because it's like, okay, I get it. Like I'm a cheapo, so I'm like, I want to save money. I don't want to like if I were going through a divorce tomorrow, I think I would still feel this way. Like, well, gosh, if we can save money, what we can. I mean, honestly, I'm a domestic lawyer, so it's kind of a ridiculous premise. I think that I can see why, like, okay, well, let's not spend, we don't have a ton of, we're already going to be dividing everything in half. I don't want to spend an extra $20,000, both of us on attorneys. So I certainly see the logic, but then I
Yeah,
think sometimes there's like, you kind of have to find a balance, right? Like, no, I'm not going to go hire like a bulldog who's going to insist we go to court about every single issue. That's stupid. But to try and save money by going to this meeting and then, oh gosh, I've got to go hire a lawyer to draft this. Well, now we kind of wasted that money. So I mean, I think you can kind of
yeah,
try and cut corners and it can backfire.
yeah. No, I totally agree. This was so good. There was a lot of good information. I appreciate it. I
No
appreciate it
problem.
for anybody that may be listening. Okay, as we're rounding up, is there anything else that we didn't discuss that you wanted to get out to anybody?
Well, yeah, I think I would say to anybody who is looking for, I think one thing that I would I would tell people is if they are going to meet with a lawyer and they feel like the lawyer is, maybe this might sound ridiculous because I just spent 20 minutes talking about all the things, horrible things that can happen, but I think vet your lawyer. And if you meet with somebody who either the personality doesn't jive or that you feel like they're not listening to you and they're saying like, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or they're really like overselling fear, because fear does sell, right? Like these horror stories can happen to you. And I think, of course, if someone comes to my office and they're like being incredibly naive, I will absolutely sell them fear because I think they need to hear it. But that's not my normal, that's not my normal. I think that if someone comes to me and says, look, I've got a pretty good idea of what our finances are. I've got a pretty good idea of what our custody, the kids, we've worked a lot of this out. And the lawyer starts saying, well, we just need to file a lawsuit, and they're kind of off and running with this plan that you're like, wait, that's like not at all what I just said. Find a different lawyer. I mean, I think that it's your feelings, and I have found this in my own experience, with my clients. If I have a bad relationship with a client, or like we don't jive, like it never really improves. And so if you feel like, gosh, I've already spent this like $300 or whatever it is on this consult, but this lawyer is not really like, I don't get a warm fuzzy, talk to somebody else. Because I think that it makes there's a huge range of personality and strategy. And I think that the right person for you, you'll know it. So I think that don't be afraid to say, you know what, that lawyer was not the right
I
fit for
totally
me.
agree. Totally agree with you. That's good advice too. Well, what is the best way for people to contact you? For those listening, I'm gonna be putting at the end your
Excuse me.
contact information, but some people may just be listening to this. So what's the best
Sure.
way for them to
So
reach?
I am at South Park Family Law. My email address is M as in Meg Stacy, Stacy at southparkfamilylaw.com, or our website is southparkfamilylaw.com. You can certainly find me on there. That's probably the easiest way to contact me is email.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. You have given out some really good information, and it's information I haven't heard on other podcast episodes. So I
Well, wonderful.
appreciate you relaying this to everyone, and it was good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, talk to you soon.
Right, bye.
Bye. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information contained herein is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please seek an attorney.